Hi, I'm Kachri and I'll be your host for today with an exciting list of book recommendations. If you know me or anything about me, you must know that I absolutely love the thriller and horror genre. It's the few genres that I actively and intensively read throughout the year. My primary media consumption, be it reading, series, or movies, has always been thrillers in the past couple of years. And so you can just guess that I have watched tons of them. Like tons of them. The thing is, with thrillers, there's so much that you can do and so much that you can have. There are political thrillers, there are historical thrillers, there are romantic thrillers, there are pure thrillers, there are crime thrillers, there are like court drama thrillers. Um, there are thrillers that are horror, there are horror that are thrillers. These two genres are so like overlapping that sometimes you may miss out what is what. I feel like thrillers and horror are known around for their absolutely absurd, sometimes crazy plot lines. But the one thing that I haven't come across is an extensive list of queer thrillers and horrors. Another thing with queer thrillers and horror is that the genre as a whole, thriller and horror, it's something that you don't necessarily always see on like popular book lists. And on top of that, I feel like queer thrillers and horrors are criminally underrated. And so, with it being Pride Month and me being an absolute lover of this genre, I thought, why not do you all a good service by recommending a few of my favorite queer thrillers and horror books? The books that I'll be recommending aren't necessarily something you will find on, the front of a book list or in the center of a bookstore. They might also be very difficult to find, especially in India, because back when I read them, I got them as e-review copies from NetGalley and the publishers. So yes, because these books I'll be mentioning are a little bit underrated, I feel you might not easily find them, but whenever and wherever and however you can get your hands on these books, I feel like you should give them a read because these books I feel are like bold and messy and weird, but also so powerful in the messaging that they give. I love books that are not just about queer trauma or, the queer character or the queerness of them, but also them as just main leads and, doing the thrilling aspect of a thriller book and being in murder mystery and just being in a thriller, if you get what I mean. So let's get right into the video. I hope you like it. So the first book on my list is The Girls I've Been. It's a YA thriller about our main character Nora, who was basically born into the world of con. She is the daughter of a con artist, but then she escapes when her mother falls into the hands of the person that she was conning. So Nora has been in the cusp of duping rich criminal men, taking on different identities her whole life. But years down the line, Nora is finally settling into her current identity and her current life with her little girlfriend and her best friend. And they're having a good time, but then things soon turn deadly when they go to a bank and the bank is robbed and Nora is held hostage. This book was a delight right from the beginning. I remember liking the author's writing style so much. It was so fun being in Nora's point of view and seeing the book basically unfold from her perspective. I feel like the book was more character driven than plot driven. So if you like more character driven stories, I feel like you'll really, really enjoy this, especially with Nora's background as a con artist. I think it makes the book so much more interesting because her past and her entire life leading up to the moment where this whole bank heist goes wrong, it's very interesting to know, and the author lays it down so beautifully for you to just reflect back on Nora as we progress with the story. I also really love the other side characters. I feel like they were perfect sidekicks to this whole con artist, chilling, story. Wes and Iris, they were absolutely goofball characters. They were absolutely supportive, and I feel like the whole dynamic between the three of them was just so beautiful. If you like thrillers that focus on really intricate details and everything is planned very well, I feel like The Girls I've Been should be a book on your radar. Yes, it's a young adult thriller, but also I feel like it doesn't read like a young adult thriller at best. It's mature, the writing is very beautiful, the characters are well developed, and there's also a sequel if you are interested in. I had also heard years ago that this book was being adapted into a movie where Millie Bobby Brown was gonna play the main character Nora. I don't know what happened to that. I don't know if the movie is even in production or being shot, but if it is, I would love to see that because I feel like she would encapsulate Nora's character so well. Overall, I would say that The Girls I've Been is a really, really fun thriller. You will have a great time with it. The next book is one that I keep recommending to people over and over again, although I read it like 5 to 6 years ago, so I don't know what I will feel about it when I read it now. But it's called As I Descended. In this book, we follow the story of Maria and Lily, who are at this boarding school, and they are extremely ambitious lovers. People don't know that they are lovers, but they are extremely ambitious and they would do anything to win this coveted Kingsley Prize of their school. And the one person that comes as an obstacle for them is Delilah. So things happen, strange things happen as the book unfolds. It's said that this book is a queer sapphic retelling of Macbeth. However, I haven't read Macbeth, although I know the story of it. So I don't think I can tell you if it's an exact true to the original story retelling. But I can tell you that As I Descended is a creepy, atmospheric boarding school sapphic thriller. There are supernatural elements in the book that you will find out and figure out as you progress through the story. I feel like the best part about this book is the way that the author encapsulated the creepiness and eeriness of this whole boarding school set in the midst of nowhere sort of feeling. When I was reading the book, the one thing that I could imagine was this boarding school in the middle of the forest, surrounded by a lake and forest, and there was this fog all around. That is exactly the vibe that this book will give you. And there will be a time where the characters, as well as you, might be questioning what is true and what is not. This is one of my favorite books, and every time, queer thrillers come up, I recommend this to everyone and anyone. Another thing about this book is that you are absolutely going to hate the characters. The characters are morally gray, but they are just so evil. Like, you are not going to be rooting for any character, I feel. But I also feel like that is the essence of a good book. Like, if someone can make you absolutely dislike a character, I definitely chalk it up to good writing and good storytelling. So there's that. The next recommendation I have for you is another young adult horror supernatural thriller, and it's called The Taking of Jake Livingston. I will admit that I requested this book solely because of its gorgeous cover. It's so creepy and so beautiful. I don't know, I love it. So in this book, we follow our main character Jake, who is the only black kid in the school, and he has a popular brother. And the other thing riding for him is that he can see the dead. But things soon turn into chaos when the vengeful ghost of a school shooter turns up and haunts Jake for his body. The story has been compared with Get Out, and if you have watched Get Out, you will get a good vibe of what this book is going to provide you. I feel like this book is also atmospheric and it's also creepy. And if you are especially into books like that with the vibe, I think you're going to enjoy it. My only complaint for this book was that I was particularly not fond of the ending. But apart from that, I think the author did a great job of this character development, plot development, as well as making up a good atmospheric setting for the readers. What I loved the most about it, I remember, was the writing. It was easy, it was flowy. I loved Jake's character. His emotions were portrayed very well. On top of that, I feel like it was also such an interesting plot where, we have this character who can see ghosts and who can interact with ghosts, but he cannot tell anyone, and he's just sidelined and outnumbered and outcasted. And I feel like that makes up for such an interesting arc for this main character in the book. I don't have a lot to say because I don't remember enough to tell you about the intricacies of the plot, but I remember it being very energetic and absolutely making sure that you turn the pages because it was that interesting. The next book is another one that I requested solely because of its cover, because it's so gorgeous. The book is called Darling, and it's a queer Peter Pan retelling. When I looked at the cover, when I saw the cover for the first time, I was so sold. And then I found out that it's a Peter Pan retelling, and I absolutely love retellings for some reason. On top of that, I love the story of Peter Pan. So everything combined, this book was the book for me. And surprisingly, I ended up loving it as well. So in this book, we basically follow our main character, who is Wendy Darling. On her first night in Chicago, she meets this boy called Peter. And then Peter takes her on this extravagant journey through the undergrounds and meeting new friends and being in parties. She meets Tinkerbell, she meets Captain Hook and the Lost Boys. But everything about Peter is not as it seems. The night unfolds in completely different ways that she had imagined. She thought that she was going to a party, but everything doesn't turn out the way that she was hoping it to be. The book's writing is very atmospheric. There is something about the way that the author wrote the whole story and reimagined it that makes you have this creepy feeling inside you that something wrong is about to happen. However, the author also keeps it quite in a bubble until the end, and when the ultimate climax or the ultimate twist happens, it just breaks you. The reimagination of Peter Pan was done so well in this book. I was amazed. In a way, I was terrified of the characters, and for the characters, I was also terrified of the way that it unfolded and terrified of the reason that the author took for the whole story of Lost Boys in Neverland. It was very hard hitting, especially when you also link it to contemporary times. You feel like this is not something that is so uncommon. That makes the reading experience of this book completely different, because you see that something like this is so terrifyingly real that it just doesn't remain fiction for you. I'm saying too much and I don't want to spoil it, but I feel like you really need to give this book a read. I feel like it's criminally underrated and I don't see a lot of people talking about it. And the book is filled with queer characters. You will see a lot of representation and it's not forced at all. They are just there existing and living life as themselves and just being part of their story. And I feel like that is so beautiful and inspiring too. I will say that this book has an immense lot of characters, which might make it a bit confusing at times. However, if you are accustomed to the story of Peter Pan, you will be familiar with some of the characters. At the end, I feel like this is the kind of book that will do really good as an adaptation. I feel like it just has the whole blueprint for a great adaptation, right? You see in the movie, like when you're reading it, you can see a movie play in your head. At least I could. It's a very thrilling, suspenseful book. It also has a very dark spin to your favorite classic childhood story, and if you are into stories like that, if you're into books like that, I feel like this should be right up your alley. And the last book that I would like to recommend is one that I had been screaming about on my Instagram back in the 2020s when this book came out, because I loved it so much. The book is called Surrender Your Sons and it's an absolute favorite of mine. I had made a lot of my friends read it and they absolutely loved it. So I think that says for something. So in Surrender Your Sons, our main character is Connor, who is basically going through a rough phase in his life. And on top of that, he is forcefully sent to a conversion camp. The conversion camp is deadly brutal, and Connor is all set to unravel the secrets of it and basically bring this whole place down. In the camp, he meets other housemates that he grows very friendly with. He finds love and he finds loss, and he goes through this whole adventure where he finds that the camp is not as it seems, and there are secrets underlying the camp that are very deadly. This book was a debut, if I'm not wrong, but the writing was amazing, especially the characterization where we see each of these characters have their own personalities, and then they were written in such a way that you feel for these characters. You feel hate, you feel love, you feel empathy, and you feel so much for these characters that are mentioned. Especially for Connor, when you're reading from his point of view, you would just want to hug this little boy and tell him that everything would be fine and you just have to push through. Another reason why I keep recommending this book over and over again is the sheer reality that this book portrays. Reading the book will just make you feel like you're on the tip of your toes at the edge of the seat, going to the next page, just hoping that everything is good, everything goes smoothly, and everything is well. Surrender Your Sons is an amazing book. I feel like if you are looking for an underrated queer thriller that is terrifying at best, well written, I feel like this should be on your radar. So there you go. Those were five of my favorite queer horror thriller books that I read in the past couple of years. Let me also know if you have read any of these books, if you had any of these books on your wish list or TBR, and also if after this video you are intrigued to read any of these. I would love to know. I would also like to know if you also have some recommendations for me on this genre. And that's it. Hope you like this video. For more such book recommendations, don't forget to subscribe. I will see you in the next one. Bye bye.